President Corzo, go ahead.
Welcome, everyone. I am calling to order our meeting at 5:30 p.m. and we will be recessing to closed session for Government Code 54957.6, conference with labor negotiators, agency designated representative, Dr. Joan Rosas, employee organization SMIDA, CSCA, and/or SMIA, as well as item 2.2, review non-public school, non-public agency contracts for the 2019-2020 school year, Government Code 54957, public employee discipline, dismissal, release, and finally, Government Code 54957, public employee performance, goals, evaluation, superintendent. If these discussions are not completed before 6:30 p.m., the closed session will continue following the regular meeting.
Okay. President Corzo, go ahead.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. We are reconvening to our regular meeting. And I just want to take this moment to remind folks that we do have translation, Spanish translation available. So at the beginning of each item, please raise your hand if you need Spanish translation, and I will also be prompting everyone as well. So moving on to, I'm sorry, we have nothing to report out of closed session, and now we will be moving on to roll call. Trustee Chin?
Here.
Trustee Hitchcock?
Here.
Trustee Proctor?
Here.
Trustee Watkins?
Here.
And Trustee Corzo is present. All board trustees are in attendance. Moving on to approval of agenda for August 20, 2020.
Move approval.
A second.
Roll call vote. Trustee Chin?
Yes.
Trustee Hitchcock?
Yes.
Trustee Proctor?
Yes.
Trustee Watkins?
Yes.
And a yes from me as well. And moving on to approval of minutes for July 23rd, 2020 special board meeting and July 30th, 2020 regular board meeting.
Move approval of the minutes.
A second.
Roll call vote. Trustee Chin?
Yes.
Trustee Hitchcock?
Yes.
Trustee Proctor?
Yes.
Trustee Watkins?
Yes.
And a yes from me as well. Our minutes are approved. And before beginning public statements, please, if you would like to listen to a translation in Spanish for public statements, I'll actually say this in Spanish right now as well. Please raise your hand. Si ocupan traducción para esta parte de la agenda, donde vamos a estar hablando, donde el público puede dar sus comentarios en cualquier cosa que no está en la agenda en otro lugar, por favor, levanten la mano. Lo pueden hacer en la aplicación de Zoom para que se muevan a otro canal para traducción.
President Corzo, we do have one hand raised.
Okay. Para la traducción van a ver un botón que dice más. Pueden empujar ese botón y luego va a haber otro botón para la traducción. Okay? Okay. Public statements related to non-agenda topics. The San Mateo Foster City School Board cannot act upon any matter that has not been included and publicly posted on the agenda, except under limited circumstances as permitted by law. The board may refer matters raised in this forum to staff for investigation and/or action where appropriate. Please limit your statements to 3 minutes. And please raise your hand if you would like to give a public comment on a non-agenda topic.
Okay, President Corzo, at this time, we have no hands raised for non-agenda items.
Okay. I'm sorry, this is just so odd. I can't believe this. Okay, moving on. Public statements related to agenda items. Persons will be called on at the appropriate time. And moving on to foundation and committee reports.
I'll go first. I've got a bunch of committee reports to relay or announce, I guess, or report to the board. On Tuesday, this past Tuesday, the city of San Mateo, and I guess this is through, well, a couple of committees that I'm on, the city of San Mateo approved 2 housing developments in San Mateo. One, the downtown, the 100% affordable housing development in downtown, which has 225 units. And then the Concord development, AKA the Passage, which has 971 units, of which 73 units are affordable. So for a total, there are about 300 affordable housing units that are going to be coming on over the next few years, which is really good for our housing inventory. Of particular note, the downtown San Mateo development worked with the homeroom committee, which I'm on, to set the rents that they're going to be charging. They worked with Mid-Penn, worked with the city of San Mateo and with the district, and asked us about teacher salaries and rents. And in the end, they were able to set the rents that teachers and staff could afford, or that would at least be attractive to them. And so that is a really positive thing. Not to mention that of the 225 units, there is a certain percentage, a certain number of units that are specifically designated for local government employees. That does include our staff. So that's a real positive there. In terms of the Sanctuary Task Force, we had a meeting today. There were questions that, as we're all learning the ins and outs of distance learning, one of the things that came up was lunchtime, and how lunchtime, where our families used to be able to get the food at a certain time, with everyone's schedules now, that lunchtime window is maybe not the best and may have to shift. And so they are looking into trying to resolve if there's some ways we can look into that. Additionally, they talked about additional translation services. Apparently there's a new resource or app for teachers called talkingpoints.org, which is a local nonprofit that has really good translations services. So we talked about that as a resource. And then also just general logistics around technology. The district did set up tech tickets where people can go in and actually say, hey, I have a technology problem, and someone will call them back. But they, in some ways, to actually access the tech ticket, it helps everyone who was able to get online. But so for some of our families who actually, their issue is they could not get online, they can't technically fill out the tech ticket. So some of the Sanctuary Task Force members were fielding phone calls to get their families online. And then once they were online, then they could help out with additional things. So I'll say just from the task force, it's very positive. These are just little things that have come up and that we're trying to resolve as a task force. But overall, everyone was really sort of pleased with the opening of school so far. And I think it's been great. Lastly, just Trustee Proctor and I are on the bond committee. The only thing I'm going to mention, because we're not allowed to mention a whole lot, but we do have our letter. And so our November bond is officially Measure T. So, and that's all I can say, I guess, legally about it. So, thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Chin. Go ahead, Trustee Proctor.
Sure. I'll provide an update on the communications committee. We met and talked a bit about the district website and how you can click easily now on the homepage for COVID-19, and you can get updates and there's resources. And there's also an update of archived emails. So if anybody's missing something or wants to go back to something, you can always click there. Also, we talked quite a bit about PTAs and how they're going to be engaging this year with their families at each school. And so I know that the PTA council meeting's coming up soon, and I know they're having conversations about ways that they can still keep families feeling that sense of community in a virtual setting. So look for more information about that now that school has started. And then the other meeting was the Foster City liaison meeting. We had that meeting the morning after our late night meeting last time. So we updated them on the SRO contract decision. We talked a bit more about our bond and gave them an update on the school opening. At that time, school wasn't open yet. So we told them what they could expect and talked a bit more about childcare needs for our students. So that is my update.
I don't have any at this time. Thank you.
No updates from me either.
Okay, and Trustee Proctor and Chin covered the ones I could have shared on. Okay, moving on to announcements.
I do have also another announcement. On Tuesday, as I attended the City of San Mateo City Council meeting, which did go to 12:30 in the morning. I think I was sort of the fact that we didn't have a city school district meeting last week. Maybe I was yearning for a late night meeting, but I'm glad I did because they went over their COVID-19 update. And in their update, they announced that the City of San Mateo, through their Parks and Rec department, created a distance learning, I guess, support center at the King Center. And they are going to be able to accommodate between 60 and 72 students from our district. And one of the nice things that they said was on their first day, some of their Park and Rec staff was really happy because they were able to help first and second graders set up their computers and help them on Zoom and everything else like that in terms of setting, getting ready. The City Council also authorized $52,000 to actually have this up and running through October or until we decide through our distance learning date. And so I just wanted to announce that that was also very positive. So as I thank them personally, I thank them on behalf of the school district because we weren't aware that they were going to do this or at least contribute $52,000 towards helping our district out in distance learning. So.
Thank you. I just wanted to announce that there is a Women's Leadership Conference and the Women's Hall of Fame that will be happening virtually August 24th through the 28th. And if you would like to hear Trustee Watkins and I be part of a panel on how to be an ally, that will be taking place on the 27th. And you can find more information on the web. Just go ahead and Google search Women's Leadership Conference, San Mateo County. And yeah, we'd love for you to join us.
Want to remind folks that the Ed Foundation Gala that Trustee Hitchcock and I are supporting will take place on October 23rd. You can find more information on the Ed Foundation homepage. If you are interested in being involved in supporting that initiative, please reach out to myself or Trustee Hitchcock. Sponsorships, auction items, just kind of getting involved in any capacity. We would love to have folks support. So, and definitely save the date and mark off your calendar and join us.
Okay, seeing no other announcements, we can go ahead and move on to our superintendent report.
Thank you. I will be doing updates related to our COVID preparation in my normal superintendent remarks from now on. So to start, I wanted to welcome everyone back to school. Teachers have been involved in a number of professional development opportunities prior to the opening of school, and they will continue to work together as the year unfolds in order to provide a high quality educational experience for our students. And we are excited to open another school year in whatever form it may take. We're starting now in distance learning. Hopefully we move to a hybrid approach, and finally to a full return and at a healthy moment in time back to school. So a couple of things I'd like to bring up and make sure people are aware of is we do have on-demand translation. We continue to utilize this on-demand translation service. So if there are any communication challenges, you can request this service by asking any of our staff members. So again, there is an on-demand translation service. Ask your teachers or your principal, and we can set that up. Tech support was brought up earlier by Ken Chin when he was discussing the Sanctuary Task Force update. You have received a letter today that provides information on tech support. So be sure to look at that information, as it does provide resources for your family. Now, if you're having trouble with your technology, you can either fill in the form that is the help ticket, or you can call your teacher or your principal. Any of those three ways works. So if you're having any technology problems, you can either fill in the help desk form, tell your teacher, or tell your principal, and they will help you get to some help. I did want to bring up the fact that attendance was really not required of us in the normal sense last spring, but attendance accounting is back. And so there are strict rules for attendance accounting, even in distance learning. And I wanted to review these with you. Student attendance and class participation is going to be counted on a daily basis beginning with our opening on August 17th. And that's in accordance with Senate Bill 98, which governs both the distance learning and hybrid instructional models. The students must connect to their teacher during class time. Now they can participate by asking questions, making a comment, writing something in the chat, answering the teacher, turning in, working on some assignments, connecting in the whole group, the small group, or individually. But in some way or another, the students need to connect during class time so that they are marked here. Now, after 3 days of non-participation, you will be contacted by your school in an effort to identify why you haven't been able to connect, because maybe you're having technology difficulties that are preventing your child from attending. So obviously we want to help with that. You will continue to receive calls from the school when your child does not log in or is considered absent. So just like when we're in school on our physical campus on site, please call your school if your child is going to be absent. Doctor's notes are still required after 3 days. It's the normal attendance accounting procedure, just in a distance learning fashion. So I just wanted to let you know that. Also, now that we're back into distance learning, remember that it's not permissible for someone to be recorded without their consent. So please don't record lessons. At the same time, there are videos, instructional videos, that are available through our new curriculum, our new online curriculum. And those will be made available to you, and you can access those at any time. And more will come on that soon. I did want to talk about meal service. We are looking at the time, as was mentioned in the update, but right now it is at 5 sites. It is running from 11:30 to 1 o'clock. You do not need to have your child with you, but you need the child's name. Now, also know that your names are rolled over for 30 days if you already had been approved for free and reduced lunch. But those 30 days will be coming to an end and we need a new application. We're very pleased to see that most people have already filled in their application. But please, if you have not filled in your new free and reduced lunch application, please do so. I did want to also bring up a point that Trustee Chin brought up about the City of San Mateo providing childcare. And it's not just the City of San Mateo, although they have very generously donated to the program, but it's also the City of Foster City and other community partners. And I just wanted to let you know about a few of them. YMCA is running a program, Boys and Girls Club, the Jewish Community Center, Create Mix and Mingle, Newton Center, Building Kids of San Mateo. We have a whole list of various providers in the area. Now, of course, I can't endorse them. I haven't been in them. You would have to go and you'd have to check them out. But what they're providing is a daytime option for your children. So if you have a child that you have to go to work and you're not sure if they're going to have trouble with getting on their computers, these different agencies are offering daytime support where the students can bring their Chromebook, their device, they can get on and do their lessons, and then also have some activities after the lessons are over. So these pieces of information that I am sharing tonight will come out in my next newsletter, which will be out next week, with listings of the different childcare providers that I know of right now. There may be more, but I'll give you the contact numbers so that if you're needing to get back to work and you need a place for your children to go, these different agencies are providing options. So we are very appreciative of this work, and we really do want to commend our community partners for stepping up and helping our students at this time of need. Two last things. I wanted to let you know that we were very energized by the survey that went out with many new ideas coming in, and also volunteers who are willing to help, in particular willing to help with more with programs, but also with the health and safety protocols that we'll need to implement when we return to the campuses. So staff will be in touch with those who ask to volunteer. And we've gathered all the ideas that were sent in and sent them to the different task force leads. So in my last piece tonight, I did want to state that it is clear that fire season has started. And I wanted to send firefighters and any families who may be in harm's way our positive energy and support. We will monitor air quality here to determine whether we can hold the programs that we have opened, which are the preschool and annex, and we'll let you know via email if there's any changes to those programs. But again, we do want to send good energy to those who may be either fighting the fires or in harm's way. So for this evening, those are the updates I had on our opening of school and distance learning. And they will be sent out in newsletter form by next week. Thank you.
Thank you for that report out. We, well, before moving on to our proposed consent agenda, just a reminder, translation is needed, please raise your hand. Solo recordándoles que si ocupan traducción, por favor levanten la mano. Ahorita vamos a empezar a otra parte de la agenda. Entonces, por favor, levanten la mano si ocupan traducción. Okay, moving on to proposed consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda are considered by the board to be routine and will be enacted by the board in one motion in the form listed below. There will be no discussion on these items prior to the time the board votes on the motion unless members of the board, staff, or public request specific items be removed and discussed from the consent agenda. The superintendent and staff recommend approval of all consent items. Movement of any recommended consent item is appropriate at this time.
So I would like to remove 5.1.2 for discussion.
And I would like to remove 5.2.4.
So then we'll make a motion to approve, unless there's anybody else that has one. Make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the removal of 5.1.1 and 5.2.4.
I second.
Roll call vote, Trustee Chin,
Yes.
Trustee Hitchcock,
Yes.
Trustee Proctor,
Yes.
Trustee Watkins,
Yes.
and a yes from me as well. Okay, moving on to item 5.0. Was it 5.1.2?
Yes, 5.1.
Yes, sorry, I said 5.1.1, I think accidentally. Yes, 5.1.2. Yes.
And before you do, though, you have approved the other items on the consent agenda, and you approved a new member of our management team, and I would like to introduce her briefly to you. Is Cami Calais in the audience, Peter?
She is, and she's on her way in.
Okay, that's great.
Yes.
Cami is our new Director of Fiscal Services. She has a Bachelor's of Science from the California State University in Sacramento. And she has a Master's in Business Administration from Texas A&M. She's had 12 years in fiscal services in a variety of different positions, but mostly in school fiscal services positions, and most recently with Sacramento City Unified School District. We feel very fortunate that Cami is interested in coming to us, and we'd like to welcome her. And Cami, if you wanted to say anything to the board, this is a moment you can do it.
Thank you, Superintendent. Good evening, board. I'm looking forward to starting with the district. So.
Great, thank you so much. We're happy to have you.
Yeah, welcome to the team.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cami.
Okay. Now moving on to item 5.1.2.
So I wanted just to pull this for brief or for discussion. I know that we've had some conversation about NPS and NPA placements, and so just wanted to get a little bit more clarification just for the public around kind of these particular contracts that we're approving, in addition to any next steps that we're taking around kind of our NPS, NPA placement processes, systems, et cetera. So Dr. Rosas, are you able to provide some clarity?
Sure. I can speak to this NPS item. The contracts that you're approving in this item are all students who are continuing. There are no new students on the list. Their services cannot be disrupted without calling an IEP and changing services. So these services are a continuation from the year prior. And in fact, we have been able to bring one of our students back from an NPS. We're very pleased about that, and we hope to be able to bring more students back this year. I think what you're mostly reflecting on when you look at NPS, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that the audit called out the fact that we had a number of students in NPS and that maybe we needed to look at our process. So some of the changes that are being put into place this year are that we have specifically identified a program specialist and also a coordinator who will work very specifically on NPS connections. So they will ensure that our staff are in meetings and that we have increased communication and connection with the schools. And we will really determine whether or not a student can transition back and set that up throughout the year so that there's a smooth movement to our school sites. So we have 2 people identified to do that work. And also, of course, the most important piece of it is to really identify what can be done during the school year while the student is with us to see that they can stay in our district with the services we have. So throughout the year, we do have a professional development calendar plan and staff meetings set so that we can discuss IEP, not only compliance, but best practices and intervention strategies. So there are many different strategies that we might want to use to support students, and we need to ensure that every site and all staff know that these are available. So this is part of the work that's needs to be done this year, and we'll bring back further updates as the year progresses on where we are with this item.
Thank you for that report, Dr. Joseph. Moving on to item 5.2. Was it 4?
Yeah. This is regarding the lunch area shade structures, and I was just wondering, since we've previously discussed our interest in solar panels, due to this project still in progress and it hasn't been completed, I wanted to see if we can discuss the possibility of adjusting the contract to see what can be done with including solar at this time, or at least making them solar ready.
So this is not a solar ready project. These were part of Measure L. They actually started in 2012. This is, if you were to redo this, it will cost more and it will be a DSA review. So this is not the same as what's called out in the Facilities Master Plan in the 2020 Facilities Master Plan. So this is a very old project, started in 2012. These are not solar ready projects, and if we were, it will cost more. Go back to DSA. It's a whole new project and a new bid.
Thank you. I'm just wondering if, I would hate to have something built just to the possibility of ripping it out and redoing it again at a later time. I know it would take more money and more time, but I'm wondering if in the long run it might be the best thing.
So I would encourage us to not do that at this time. I do think that as you go forward, you could do that, but I'm interrupting Trustee Chin, so I'll let him speak.
I just had a question. Looking over the item, you mentioned that I had to go back to DSA, but we had to go back to DSA anyways because our 2-year limitation sort of expired. Is that correct? So really,
Correct.
So
Correct.
all we're doing, or I guess.
But it's a different project. It's not, if you are doing a solar ready project, it's a completely different build and it's a different bid and it's going to cost more and it won't be a simple re-up of the original DSA approval.
Do we know what that would entail? I mean, I know generally, of course, it would cost more, but I'm just wondering, what does that mean? And, obviously the simple thing is this is an amendment 3 and we can go ahead and just approve it. but I'm just wondering what does it mean? If we know we have to go back to DSA already, then really it's a cost thing. And I just want to know what that.
So Joel is here and he can answer more. So Peter, would you bring him on?
Yes, just give me one moment. Joel, are you there?
I've unmuted. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, thank you.
Hi, good evening. So the question was, since we did bring it back to DSA, it was a new review. Would it be a simple? The reason why we brought the DSA was just to get it recertified. In other words, they have already reviewed structurally the shade structure that we have. If we're going to change to a new design, obviously we're adding more weight, we're adding more solar panel, we're probably going to have beefier structure to support the solar panels. It will be a totally brand new design and a brand new review. So it's not just a matter of adding solar panels to our existing shade structure that we submitted to DSA already. It will be a totally different structural members, probably a thicker steel for the roof because we're attaching the solar panels on the roof. So brand new product essentially.
Can I, sorry, can I, the timing of it, I'm just curious. You know, we obviously have a little bit of funds left in Measure L. This is one of our last schools that are scheduled for the shade. What is there timing in order for us to approve this now versus if we want to explore what it would take to add solar? You know, could you come back in 2 weeks or something like that, or whatever? Is there an absolute need to basically approve it tonight?
We have two separate contracts for the shade structure. One was the material itself, which is the shade structure, which we got through a piggyback contract. In other words, the shade structure is already at the district's hands, sitting at Knowles. So we had bidded a project for the contractor to install. So that's in contract already. Does that make sense? So if we were to go back and select a different shade structure that would potentially hold the solar panels, then we have one extra shade structure sitting at Knowles.
Oh, okay, thank you. But in the long run, I guess what I'm asking is, I understand that we might have an extra one, but given the timing of where we are now and the fact that we are interested in looking at solar, this is a prime time to go ahead with that move and spending a little bit more money now than having later down the road the possibility of removing it and adding another one.
So how much money has already been spent on the materials that we already own?
I would have to say it's probably 70 to 80K for the material that's sitting up Knowles. We spent some money on geotechs and looking at the sites and some architectural fees. So total, I would estimate to be about 130, 140K that we've spent.
For something that we would not put up.
Correct.
I would like to make a motion that we continue this item until we get further clarification and details about what it would take to add solar there.
I'll second that.
Okay, roll call vote. Trustee Chin?
Yes.
Trustee Proctor? I'm sorry, Trustee Hitchcock.
Yes.
I'm like not seeing you guys in the right order, so my apologies. Trustee Hitchcock?
Oh, yes.
Trustee Proctor?
Yes.
Trustee Watkins?
Sorry, just to clarify, the vote is to postpone this until the next board meeting for discussion, correct? Bring you back more information? Okay, yes.
Okay, and a yes from me. Thank you. Moving on to our public hearing for proposed increase to developer fees as authorized.
Have you voted on the NPS?
Motion to approve 5.1.2.
I'll second.
Thank you. Roll call vote, Trustee Chen,
Yes.
Trustee Hitchcock,
Yes.
Trustee Proctor,
Yes.
Trustee Watkins,
Yes.
and a yes for me. The motion carries. We have now voted on both of our consent agenda items, and we are moving on to our public hearing. Before we start that, again, a reminder for translation, please raise your hand. Vamos a empezar una discusión pública sobre el aumento a unos cobros para los que construyen en nuestra comunidad. Si quieren traducción, por favor, levanten la mano. Okay, moving on. We are now officially opening our public hearing for proposed increase to developer fees as authorized by Education Code 17620.
Okay, at this time, if you would like to address the board on this particular item, please use the raise your hand functionality in Zoom, and I will call on everybody one at a time. We do have one hand up, President Corzo, but I'm not sure if that one was for our translation because it's been up since you asked about translation. So Sonia, if you would like to address the board about this particular item, thank you.
Why don't we go ahead and bring them in?
Okay. So so now the public hearing is closed and we're moving to 6.2.
Wait, I'm sorry. Did you bring the? My screen is freezing here, so I'm not seeing everything.
My apologies. The hand that was raised was lowered, so we currently have no participants, no attendees to the board meeting that wish to address 6.1, the public hearing.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we are officially closing our public hearing and moving on to item 6.2, resolution number 03/2021, adjusting developer fees as authorized by Education Code 17620.
Good evening, everybody. We provided to you for your information action tonight, information that's been prepared for us by Ilona Cunningham from Jack Schrader and Associates. And periodically, school districts are eligible to increase their developer fees, but is predicated on a developer fee justification report being prepared and reviewed and approved by the board. So tonight, the resolution 03/2021 is a recommendation from the superintendent that the board act to increase our developer fees. And Ilona Cunningham from Jack Schrader and Associates is going to walk you through the high-level components of the report that you've been provided. That is the rationale and justification for you increasing the fees, and those fees are called out in the resolution which we've prepared for you, and it's in your board packet. So Ilona, if you can unmute Ilona and provide her the ability to speak to the board about the report that she's prepared.
Okay, we have brought Ilona. Ilona, you are here as a panelist to the board. So if you'd like to unmute yourself, please, and you can address them.
Good evening. I thought my camera was on. Can anyone see me?
We cannot see you. We can't hear you.
Well, I guess we'll just go with the hearing tonight. Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here and to present your developer fee justification study. I'll provide a little bit of background regarding the history of developer fees. In September of 1986, the governor signed into law AB 2926, which granted school districts the ability to impose developer fees. Developer fees are intended as a mechanism to mitigate the impact of new development on school facilities. Then they may be used for the construction or reconstruction of school facilities. Level 1 fees are adjusted every 2 years, even years. This year they were adjusted in January of 2020. They increased from $3.79 to $4.08 per square foot for residential construction, and from 61 cents to 66 cents per square foot for commercial industrial construction. Your school district shares fees with the high school district. The high school district may collect 40%, you may collect 60%. If the high school district chooses not to collect their total 40% share of the fee, let me do it the opposite way. If the high school district chooses to collect their total 40% of the fee, the elementary district is justified to collect 60%, which is $2.45 per square foot for residential construction and 40 cents per square foot for commercial industrial construction, with the exception of mini storage and agriculture. Mini storage should be collected at 2 cents and agriculture should be collected at 25 cents. If the high school district does not increase their fees to collect their total 40%, your district is eligible to collect up to $3.04 for residential construction and up to 66 cents for commercial industrial construction, with the exception of, once again, mini storage and agriculture. Agriculture should be collected at 25 cents and mini storage at 2 cents. The study dated August 6, 2020 justifies the district to increase their fees, and we recommend that the district do so through the adoption of the resolution. And if you have any specific questions about the study, I'd be happy to answer them.
I have a question. Thank you for the information. I was wondering why we are not asking for the full, I believe it's 66 cents per square foot for the commercial.
Well, it's based on the fees are a calculation, and they're based on the number of employees generated per square foot. And the agriculture category and mini storage category, there are fewer employees per square foot generated. Because, you know, a mini storage facility, there's a lot of square footage and very few people who work there.
Okay, thank you.
So I can ask you a question. So just a follow-up question. So I read it as we were asking for the maximum amount that the state allows us. Are we not based on that answer?
Well, you are. The requirement is that between the two districts, the elementary and the high school district, you can't exceed $4.08.
Yes.
So your share, the 60%, is $2.45. So the two numbers combined would be 408.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. Yes.
That's perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, I want to thank Ilona for all her hard work on this, and I want to thank Joel and Tish as well for their assistance in compiling information and sharing with Ilona.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
So we brought you the resolution for your.
I'll make a motion to approve. I think that's just exactly what you're getting at, right? Oh wait, I'm sorry. If we need public comment, sorry.
Okay, All those who are attending this meeting, if this is your first time to join us, we do public comment by using the raise your hand feature within Zoom. So if you could please, if you'd like to make public comment on this particular item, hit that button now. Okay, President Corzo, we have nobody for public comment on this agenda item.
I'll make a motion to approve.
A second.
No? Roll call vote, Trustee Chen?
Yes.
Trustee Hitchcock?
Yes.
Trustee Proctor?
Yes.
Trustee Watkins?
Yes.
And a yes from me. Thank you. The motion carries. And we are now moving on to our Measure X update.
Yes, good evening. We're going to be sharing with you an update on Measure X, both the first phase where we're at and show you some great pictures of some work that's being completed, and also share with you some exciting news about how we're moving forward with phase 2. Joel and Tish will be walking you through the slides. What I didn't talk with Joel and Tish about is who is going to present the actual slide deck. Joel, are you prepared to put that up for us?
I am. Let me get ready.
Thank you.
Give me about 10 seconds. Oops, sorry. Let me go to the first page. Apologies. Okay. Can you all see this?
I don't see it as of yet, Joel. Is it? Can other folks see the slide deck yet? No.
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 I can share. You want to try it again, Joel? Because I can share the screen too. I have it on my screen.
Okay.
Peter's prepared to do it too.
Joel, are you trying one more time, or is Peter going to put it up there?
I'm trying one more time, but I can leave now. It's still none?
So you're using the green button at the bottom, middle of the screen?
Yes.
Screen
Yes, where it
share?
says present now. Sorry, Peter. I think you may have to.
Can you back up a couple slides,
Yeah,
Peter?
there you go. Back up to the front.
Back up. Go to the front. Thank you.
There we go. Perfect. Oh, you go to the second one, Jill. Thanks, Peter. So yeah, really quickly, the purpose for tonight's presentation is to provide you an update on phase 1, where we're at, show you some great pictures that Joel's going to walk through with you. And then Tish is going to walk you through the planning underway for phase 2. There's been a lot of great work underway, so really excited to share this with you. And we'll preview some next steps. So you can go to the next slide. Joel, I believe you're up to walk through the next slide.
Yes.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. So as you all may know, the 4 projects identified in phase 1 are listed here, and I will just give a brief update on each project. Peter, next, please. Bayside Gym. Bayside's our very first Measure X phase 1 project completed. And in fact, in consent item 5.2.3, which you all approve, is the notice of completion that we will file with the City of San Mateo. Our budget is 14.4 million, and we have about 1.9 million left, but we still have some remaining expenses, such as DSA closeout fees. However, we are expected to be under budget, as not all of the contingency was needed. Next slide, please. Here's an aerial view of the Bayside Gym. Next. This is the interior of the gym with note the high school regulation size main basketball court. Next. The Abbott classrooms, gym and locker rooms, we have 4 classrooms that we repurposed in 2017 and 2020. We have 2 brand new classrooms that came online in August of 2020. In fact, teachers were very excited moving in. Locker rooms will be, or is anticipated to be completed in the fall of 2020, and the gym projected to be completed in January 2021. Budget's about 22.9 million, and we have about roughly 2 million that is not used or unencumbered to date. Next slide, please, Peter. Here's just some exterior and interior shots of the main gym. Next slide. Here's the exterior shot of the classroom and locker rooms. The 2 brand new classrooms are up on the 2nd story, and the girls and boys locker room, as well as PE coaches and toilet rooms, are at the bottom story. Next, please. The Burrell classrooms, gym and locker room. Part of the library, we repurposed to have 1 classroom, and we have 6 new classrooms that we finished in July 2020. Our gym and locker room is projected to be completed by January 2021. Our budget is 26.5 million, and we still have 3.7 million that are not used or unencumbered to date. Next slide, please. There's just an exterior shot of the gym building, as if you're standing from outside the science wing. Next slide. And here is the new classroom buildings. These are looking from the courtyard, and the gym is stored in the center of this shot. And then background is the interior of 1 classroom with the furniture all set up. Teachers moved in here about a week and a half ago, and they're very excited to use the space. Next slide, please. Beach Park Elementary School. So our project completion date is estimated to be January 2021 with a budget of about 75.9, which includes the purchase price of the land. We have about 7.8 million not used or encumbered to date, but we anticipate roughly 4 to 5 million to be needed still. Next slide. These are just the major elements, major features of the Beach Park Elementary School. This is nothing new. I do just want to point out that this school is designed for 400 kids with 17 classrooms and 1 classroom for the children's annex. Next slide, please. This is a shot of the sign that is outside of the construction fence. This was taken during our groundbreaking day. Next slide, please. So these people look very familiar. Next slide, please. This is just a site plan of Beach Park Elementary School, and for orientation purposes, to the right is south, to the left is north, above is east, and down below is west. And it shows you your multi-purpose room is the purple color. The sort of aquamarine colors are the classrooms, and the greenish at the left is the library with an admin building in the far right, sorry. Next slide, please. This is the exterior of the classrooms. I believe the shot was taken from the play yard. Next slide, please. And just some interior shots of classrooms as they are being put together. Next slide. And this is now Measure X Phase 2, which Ms. Tispusel will be presenting.
Good evening, Board of Trustees, Dr. Rosas, and members of the public. I am pleased on behalf of the facilities team who've been working on the planning for Phase 2 while Phase 1 is wrapping up to talk about what's happening with each of the projects that the board committed to in terms of Phase 2. Peter, if we could go to the next slide. So Before I start, as the board is aware, there are many phases, particularly to doing a school project, as well as any large project. From the pre-design phase, which is what we're in and coming close to closing out right now, through the schematic phase, all the way to going to the Division of State Architect, which is the one that we can't control the timeline on. But as soon as we have approval from DSA, then we're able to go to the bidding process, request for bids, then the award of the bid if it's within budget, and then the building construction can commence. All the way through these various stages, not in every single one, but whenever there's a major change, such as having construction documents, our architects are doing cost estimates. We have 3 different architects working on 3 of the projects, with the 4th architect to be determined once the school program is figured out for the North Central School, which I'll talk about a little bit later. Peter, could we have the next slide? For any of the planning, whether it was phase 1 or phase 2, we've had guiding principles. The principles that we're meeting right now, are using right now, are that first and foremost, these facilities are needed for both increased and increasing enrollments. They also design-wise have been as best we can within budget to meet both current needs and research on most effective learning environments for the 21st century. Then a major principle is to have architectural compatibility with the school, which already is architecturally compatible, hopefully, with the rest of the neighborhood. We have a very strong engagement process planned once again, which is important in any project, and that will include both internal stakeholders, including parents, as well as outreach to the community. This will look a little bit different during the time that we're in now, in that we will be having virtual opportunities for engagement and meetings, as well as some other opportunities for person-to-person contact for both educating people as well as providing an opportunity for input. And then very importantly, in this time and all times, is to make sure that our projects are designed with in alignment with the approved budgets. So with that, I'm going to go through each of the projects and the amenities, the major amenities in each project, as well as the budgets and the locations that we're looking at right now. So Peter, next slide, please. The first up is Bowditch. Bowditch was the major part of Bowditch project, as committed to by the voters, was to provide for increased enrollments. Fortunately, we've been able, working with the architect that is HED, to not only provide classrooms, but to have those classrooms be state-of-the-art science classrooms and labs, which are appropriate at the middle school level. And they will house all of the 7th and 8th grade science program at Bowditch. In addition, the Next Steps Committee and then recommended, and the board committed to, if there was funding available within the budget, to begin the renovation of Bowditch. And since that time, because of the growth in the music program, the drama program itself has not been able to use that same shared building. And so the decision was made that we would add a drama building specifically for instruction and for their very vibrant, as you know, theater program. We also have a very small part of the HVAC project to complete there, which we're hoping will come within the budget, as well as renovations, some minor renovations to the existing science classrooms for 6th grade science, and then conversion of the existing science classrooms for 7th and 8th grade for other subjects as needed. Then, of course, in any project that goes to DSA, there is a check on whether or not you have sufficient restrooms. And we believe that this will probably require restroom additions, since we are adding significant space and also replacing a restroom that is in a portable right now. The board approved budget for Bowditch is, as you can see, $19.5 million. That includes all costs, construction and soft costs, and all technical studies. So with that, Peter, can you move us to the next slide, please? So specifically in regard to Bowditch, as you inquired during the presentation of the facilities master plan, and the adoption of it, you noted, and we noted for you, that a significant portion of the immediate priorities for the facilities master plan is to begin the renovation of a modernization, to begin the modernization of Bowditch. And 65 million is set aside or designated in the immediate priorities from the facilities master plan for the new decade. And we are taking that into consideration while continuing to plan the Measure X project. And I'll show you how we're doing that in the next slide. Peter, please. So the location of the drama building is in the pink, with the blue being the restrooms. This is on the west side of the campus, and the drama building is where relocatables, very old relocatables, were until several years ago. The science lab and classrooms is in the orange building, and in between is what was the shared drama music building and has now become the music building. And those have been, this is the very best location for them without having to move utilities, but it also allows for the consideration of modernization and beginning to renovate the rest of the facility should funds become available to do that. Next slide, Peter. Moving to George Hall, you'll see a lot of similarity between the George Hall and Sunnybrae overviews. Both of them sustain the board's commitment to add a new multi-purpose room with a small stage, a warming kitchen, and meal serving area, as well as restrooms and storage. In each of the cases of George Hall and Sunnybrae, we are able to meet budget because there are several classrooms that are now being used for smaller group instruction or for offices, because the enrollment in those schools have declined somewhat in the last few years. So we're able to repurpose classrooms by literally moving several programs into smaller spaces that are more appropriately built for those specific uses. And you can see the uses listed here. We're doing the same thing at Sunnybrae, but there are a little bit different uses at Sunnybrae. You will note that one of the uses that is being moved is the sensory program, which you may have seen in the facilities master plan as being getting adequate and the right kind of space for that program at both sites. And also a number of special education services would be located with the multipurpose room. So the cost for each of the George Hall and Sunnybrae projects is 11.6. That is the board approved budget, including, again, all costs, construction and soft costs. The location that we're looking at for George Hall is on the next slide, Peter, please. So the location is the colored squares in the middle of the George Hall site on the Google map. You can see that we couldn't get off of the Google map that this site is temporarily closed. I think Google Map put that on there because of COVID. I don't know, but we tried to get it off, but it's there. The purple is a multi-purpose room, and then on either side of the purple is the small spaces that I just talked about. What is great about this location is that just to the top of it is the new lunch structure that was installed this past year. And so there is a very good opportunity to connect both outside of the multi-purpose room and certainly the kitchen and serving area with the lunch structure itself, and to tuck this project into the site itself. Next slide, please, Peter. So Sunnybrae, again, a new multi-purpose room, and we've been able to find a location that does not require either the cost of or losing the existing LGI room, which has been a goal at the school site level as well as at the district level, to be able to provide an additional space. And it will include, again, a warming kitchen and a meal serving area or servery, restrooms, and storage. Again, we've been able to repurpose, use existing classrooms by planning for the move of smaller users into smaller spaces. What's different about this one is that the reading recovery program, which Sunnybrae has, would make a move, and their literacy TOSA would also make a move. But again, resource specialist program will be provided with adequate space as well as appropriate sized room for a PE office. The PE office at Sunnybrae up till the end of last year, and I believe this year, is in a whole classroom. And so this makes both a budget difference, but it's also a good use of the site itself rather than adding additional classrooms when we already have them. Again, the total approved budget, board approved budget for Sunnybrae is 11.6 million. And Peter, going on to the next slide, which is the location. So the location is shown on this slide in the yellow rectangle. At the bottom of the slide is the parking lot for Sunnybrae, and then walking into the office, which is about in the middle of the first wing. And as you may recall, that's a 2-story wing, and then behind that wing is a 1-story wing. And this puts this building both proximate to the school, the rest of the school wings, but also saves the most part of the asphalt and play areas, and does not require relocating utility lines, and most importantly, saves existing NPR or LGI room. Peter, next slide, please. So for all 3 of these projects, the next steps will be to continue to work with principals and convene their school facilities teams that will include both staff and parent leadership, and the architect and we will be working with them on location, overall design, the budget, and the team responsibilities, which will include advising on some of the furnishings that are not district standards, as well as advising on the colors of the school, which people care about a lot. Not the colors of the school, the colors of the buildings. Then after that, we'll schedule neighborhood meetings. I talked about that a little bit when I was talking about the guiding principles. These we will need to prepare to do differently. We're already talking about how to do them virtually, as well as provide other opportunities for individuals in the neighborhood to be able to see the plans who may not be able to connect virtually to a meeting if that is needed. And then continue to work with the architects to both refine the projects and move through the various phases of planning, and very importantly, cost estimating. Peter, the next slide. The 4th major phase 2 project is North Central School. As you know, you've taken a little bit of a different direction in terms of North Central School planning, in terms of first engaging a consultant to identify effective program options for the school based on data, then getting input from stakeholders in the North Central community, which would include both parents as well as community members, and I assume their home association, what they call the North Central Home Association. I think that's right, Noelia, but please correct me if I'm wrong. And to look at the educational program options and what that means in terms of a building, and then to come back to the Board of Trustees with the consultants sharing the findings and conclusions about the educational program with the Board of Trustees. The total board approved budget for the North Central School for all costs is $23 million. Peter, next slide, please. So to put all of the numbers into one slide for you, you can see these are the repeat of the numbers we looked at above. The total cost or the total approved budget for all of the phase 2 projects, which includes an escalation set aside, not included in any project right now, of $7 million. Total cost would be $72.7 million, and that would be funded by a second bond sale. Peter, next slide, please. And this, now I would turn it back over to the board for your questions, your comments, public comments, as well as discussion. This is an information item for tonight. And thank you.
Thank you, Tish. Do we have any clarifying questions from the board?
Okay, I have questions. Thank you for actually a number of the slides, especially the money and the budget was very helpful because that answered a couple of questions that I had. But starting off with the numbers, in terms of, from my estimates, adding up the Abbott, Burrell, and Beach Park Elementary for the unencumbered amounts of money that, well, the amount of money that is not encumbered at the moment, or is about 7.3 million. Is that correct?
That's the projection based at this point in time. Please note that on the Measure X summary, which you were provided with tonight, in terms of one item, that because of the change in the fiscal year, there are still some purchase orders that need to be re-encumbered from last year. So that still needs to be taken into account. Plus, there are other major items that may still occur. We have continuing change orders as things are discovered. So that right now is the best estimate that we can give, but know that it will go down.
Fantastic, thank you. That's great. Yes, it's always good to still have money in the bank when the project ends. So that's great. In terms of Sunnybrae, in the location that was chosen for the NPR, I guess you guys have analyzed the site and figured out that we can get construction back there without removing the existing kindergarten classrooms and the LQA.
What I didn't point out to you, and I should have on the site location, is on the north of the site, which is adjacent to the wings, as well as where the new building is. That is an emergency access area now, and it's large enough to bring in trucks and to then have the staging area beyond the NPR, which will mean less disruption to instruction when school is in place.
Oh, I thought it was a garbage shed that was there that may be there, but I guess that's easy to demolish.
The trash cans need to be removed. I mean, need to be relocated.
Okay, thank you. No, that helps. I'm glad that I was thinking we had to go on the south side, but no, that helps. And then just to be clear, for George Hall and Sunnybrae, we're actually just repurposing classrooms. So we're not actually adding classrooms, they're just NPRs at the moment.
We're adding NPRs and we're adding small spaces.
Yes.
So the equivalent of up to about 2 to 2.5 classrooms worth of small spaces that are designed appropriately for the size of the group or the individual that'll be in there.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yes, I know that for a lot of our site visits we've been at, some of the specialists end up using just empty classrooms because that's what's available, but it tends to be oversized for their need. So I'm glad that's there. In regards to the HVAC that was done at Bowditch, through the facilities master plan, there was talk about the air filtration systems. And, I was wondering, for us to upgrade the filters, a lot of it, we may have to actually redo a lot of the HVACs in terms of actually making sure that ductwork and everything else is sized appropriately for the higher filters we're looking for. Is that correct?
Joel, why don't you speak to that, because this HVAC is a very, very small part of the campus.
Yes, that is correct. Some of our older units are not capable of handling the finer filters. So if I were to compare it, if you breathe through a straw, you're going to have a harder time. So our motors in those units are probably going to start burning out if we start replacing them with the more finer filters.
When we get to it, and I guess this is a comment, but it's related to the HVAC, is when we actually go through and actually upgrade the HVACs, I'm wondering if we could do a cost analysis of adding sort of standalone HEPA filters to the classrooms that we attach to the walls, thereby not actually, I'm sorry, this is a comment. So I'll finish. So not by actually upgrading the actual additional cost of upgrading all the ductwork and everything else. I'm wondering if we could do a cost analysis to add standalone filters, HEPA filters at a later date. So thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Any other clarifying questions from the board?
I have one question around Bowditch. So in terms of timeline for the phase 2 projects around Bowditch, and then the potential or the bond measure and determining what happens there? Kind of where are we at in terms of timeline? What does that look like in terms of kind of moving for the phase 2, waiting for the bond, determining what makes sense in terms of how we proceed? I'm just curious to hear a little bit more about that.
So we're working with the architect on a timeline that will both help us move ahead to keep the district's commitment on phase 1 or phase 2 for Measure X, as well as I hoped I pointed out, to try to take into account that there could be both either modernization or partial renovation. I think during the facilities master plan, you asked what would a full renovation cost, and it's in excess, way in excess of $100 million based on the estimates provided. So if the bond passes, then we might be looking at a combination of both renovation and modernization, unless there's other money that suddenly drops from the sky. These locations were the best to begin with in terms of keeping within the budget for Measure X phase 2, but also they are very good locations should reconstruction begin of the site. So we're continuing to try to move ahead because the school obviously has been promised this and wants this, but if the bond, or maybe I should say when the bond passes, hopefully, and the board would need to engage in immediate discussion with our architect for Measure X and also an architect for a new project, which would come from our pre-approved architects, and about what is the best way to move forward. But these classrooms, we need additional space at Bowditch. There are relocatables being used there now. So either way, additional space needs to be added.
Okay. Well, the current architects are working on kind of that next piece, or no? They're just simply working on the Measure X commitment, and then we would be then. I don't know. I'm just thinking about efficiencies. I totally understand what you're saying, but then I'm also just thinking about, you know, this being split in just two separate projects, and how we just kind of, as much as possible, are as efficient and obviously as cost effective as possible at, you know, moving forward.
So the district would need to go through a selection process for an architect, just like we have previously off of the pre-qualified architects. For a new project, which could be melded with the existing project. And you asked at the beginning of your question, is this totally being treated separately by the architect or not? I would say it's kind of right now in the middle, keeping the fact that there may be bond money available and that Bowditch is on the immediate priorities list at $65 million, which I should point out includes almost $14 million for the gym. Which has been promised, that they're keeping it in mind, but it's not totally put together yet in terms of one project. And I think the challenge is how to keep the commitment to people for what they really need, and as well as keep with the timeline that will unfold with the bond itself. But I think that one of the first things I would recommend to the superintendent is that should the bond measure pass, that the Bowditch be one of the first considerations to get board direction about what you'd like to do. But we do have, as you know, a cost estimate on the total rebuild of Bowditch, and that does not include any new classroom, any additional classrooms. And we also have the current architect knowing that there may be renovation and the beginning of a demolition and replacement of buildings. And we've been very careful about saying the beginning of, because right now the money is not, you can't put the money together to get there. Also, part of the planning for this, for the phase 2, also took into consideration what might be coming in the future by not taking space that might be used with a rebuilding of the school. So not taking, and there are many reasons for doing this, but it was one reason for putting the location where it is not to start using the front end and using it for smaller spaces when in fact the front end or the tarpon end might become a major part of the renovation of the school or the rebuilding of the school, and then phasing that in across the school side, or vice versa, starting on the Swordfish side and moving forward. Because one has to worry about temporary housing for students, and the Knowles site, which has been used in the past, cannot accommodate 1,000 students. And so, and fortunately, they have a lot of space at Bowditch that is taken up by the grass area in front of the school. So phase in could be possible starting from that end of the site or from the other end of the site. And so that was one of the major factors that led to this location proposal. But another major factor was the cost of rerouting utilities to put it somewhere else.
Thank you. I have one more question about the North Central School and timeline. So I know that when COVID, when we were very close to kind of moving forward with a lot of these next steps when COVID hit. So I'm curious, just acknowledging that all of the rest of these projects are moving ahead with the exception of this one. And so where are we at in terms of timeline here? Identifying a consultant, when are the listening sessions happening? When are we reconvening? If somebody could share that.
So we want to bring a conversation about the North Central project and LCAP to your study session on the 5th. Then there would be
September 5th. September 5th.
Mm-hmm. And then we can send out the request for proposal. If the board needs to look at it again on the 10th, or if not, it could be ready to go. And then hopefully they would have conversation with that consultant by the 24th of September, so that your listening tours could start in October. That's kind of what we were looking at.
I'm sorry, I was under the impression that we kind of have other topics for that study session. Will we have enough time?
Yeah, because we're just going to go over the timeline. I think we can get that done.
Okay. Okay, do we have any other questions? Okay, seeing no other questions, let's go ahead and move on to public comment.
Okay, those who would like to make public comment on this particular agenda item, please use the raise your hand function within Zoom. Okay. President Corzo, we currently have 3 people for public comment. How much time would you like to give?
3 minutes.
3 minutes? Okay. The first person for public comment will be Randy Painter. And then afterwards will be Jay Carson. Randy?
Hi, good evening. Thank you to Mr. Cadiz and Ms. Bussell for this update. It's super exciting to see so many of these phase 1 Measure X projects wrapping up now. And it's fall 2021 and it's going to be fall 2020 and it's going to be winter 2021. And then of course, there are the remaining phase 2 projects that we saw Ms. Bussell present that were still in the planning phase. Now, I recall as a voter that Measure X passed in November 2015 after previously attempted but failed bond measure. And I noticed from even tonight that there are items that remain to be completed from Measure L, which was the bond measure that was passed prior to Measure X. And so in hearing the really brief update that Trustee Chin made about ballot measure T for another bond measure, which is focused on much needed upgrades for many of our aging facilities. But as I understand it, it's framed as a response to COVID safety and hygiene. I wonder how quickly that these renovations that will be funded by Measure T, if it is funded by the voters, how quickly that these renovations will actually be able to be made and how they're going to be prioritized. Presumably, we're not going to be able to do them all at once. And to be clear, if COVID persists over multiple years, we don't find a vaccine in a year, let's say. And with what we know about the importance of adequate ventilation to minimize disease transmission, my concern is about accelerating the HVAC upgrades. So thank you for your time and for including these questions in your discussion if you do find them important to discuss.
Thank you, Randy. Okay, next we have Jay Carson, and then after Jay will be Jen Kawakami. Jay? Jay, you're using apparently an older version of Zoom, so we're going to have to promote you as a panelist. It will kick you out of the Zoom and then enter you back in, and then you'll have 3 minutes to address the board. Okay, Jay.
Hello all, am I in?
You are in. Go ahead, you have 3 minutes.
Absolutely. Jenna Carson here. I just really want to say thank you to the superintendent, all the staff, this board, and of course our past boards for following through with this work. Just for some context, I have been talking about and advocating for the middle school upgrades since my daughter was a kindergartner, and she is currently an 8th grader at Abbott. So it's been a long road coming. Goodness knows, we've had a couple bumps in the road. Goodness knows that we are absolutely hoping to be in by January 2021. I might lose my mind if we're not, right? I didn't expect much, but right, to get in there for a couple months by the end of my 3rd would be what I'm hopeful for. I'm also excited to hear about the North Central project moving forward, and I really want to advocate for significant opportunity for community input. So when Measure X was passed, I was also part of a lot of conversations around equity, and I talked about how my school district, Sequoia, eliminated busing altogether. And I'm not saying we are going to, but I'm going to say that it's an important part of the conversation again. And now that we're looking at the North Central school opportunities, that should still be on the table. And finally, I would like to see if we can add to this presentation the timelines for the phase 2 projects. So that has been in every project, or almost every presentation from the beginning of our Measure X proposals is in our slideshows. They also have an expected timeline. Those of you that have been around long know that I probably am going to hold you to it, right? But I think it's really important for public transparency that you guys share what you know about those timelines. And I think you should be really proud for coming in under budget, at least for these first ones. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Jen. Okay. Next, we have Jen Kawakami. Jen?
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Thank you so much. First, I want to thank you for all the work and consideration you all are doing. It is not going unnoticed. Also, I'd like to, in considering the next ballot initiative, I need to express the urgent need to make sure that funds are used to make sure that every campus has proper upgraded HVAC. And we cannot ignore those last 2 letters, AC, air conditioning. We are at a point where we do experience extreme heat often in the Bay Area. I am pretty sure that most adults in this meeting work in conditions that have a proper AC system. Air conditioning is no longer a luxury. It is essential for our students to be able to focus and learn in class. There are numerous studies that show that students perform lower when experiencing extreme heat without air conditioning. Of course they do. This makes sense. None of us are at our best when we are in extreme heat with no relief. It is simply not acceptable that some schools have AC and other sites and their students suffer greatly in hot weather. This is, of course, an equity issue. It is also very important to remember that 25 to 35 students in a classroom also produces its own heat. Many times in a heat wave, I can walk out into extreme heat and it is actually cooler outside than how it is in my classroom because of the body heat that is being conducted. Please consider this. Thank you for remembering how important air conditioning is for all of our schools. This bond needs to first and foremost ensure that all district schools will get air conditioning. It is not a luxury, it is a necessity. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Jen. Okay, President Corzo, there are no other hands for public comment at this time.
Okay, thank you. And opening it up for discussion.
I always give time in case someone wants to go before me. Thank you for the presentation. I'm really excited about the gyms and the phase 1 projects. I've been by Bayside a lot and it looks fantastic from the outside. I wish we could go in. I wish we were in school and students were actually using it right now. But you know, to be able to see the pictures is just amazing. I look forward to when Borel and Abbott are done because I think equally those will look amazing and really hope that they will be done by January of 2021. Just a couple of comments just to further the comment. I think going off of the timeline and I guess, well, we can't necessarily talk about the bond, but the idea about how we spend the money, the idea is I'm wondering whether or not in terms of the air filtration, again, whether we look at sort of off the shelf, you know, fixed HEPA filters to be installed in every classroom, which may be an immediate impact if COVID is prolonged. Because I think we could probably get those in a lot faster and they don't need all the ductwork and everything else. The other benefit of that is possibly not upsizing our HVAC to a degree where, you know, we're doing it just because of the filters. So I would push to kind of look into that if we can. Dr. Rose, as you mentioned, September 5th, I also had some concerns. I'm wondering whether or not it may be September 10th at the meeting in terms of just the discussion about North Central School, partly because I know that the November 5th items are pretty heavy. So just a comment about that. And then
so I did look at the agenda builder and we had said timeline the projects for the year. So that would be the time to timeline that.
Okay.
And to state what we're doing there. And then, yes, it was supposed to be to work on the LCAP because, well, it's LCAP, the
new LCAP.
1 year LCAP and equity work.
Yeah.
So it is a lot in just 2 hours. It is a lot. So maybe we will, and we had talked about carrying it over then to, we put it in for the 10th also. So I guess it will start and finish.
Whatever works. I just wanted to relay that, you know, as per my comments, I thought
right.
Yeah, it's heavy. So
right.
The other comment that I had was about Bowditch. I know per our facilities master plan, we have the discussion that at the basic, in terms of rebuilding middle school, we're looking at $100 million. Thank you, Tish, for saying that the measure or the facilities master plan calls for $65 million worth of improvements. So when we add 65 plus the 20 million that we're already putting in for the new, is it the drama and the science labs, that's 85 million. So theoretically we're 15 million short, which maybe we could make up, but I would love it, obviously, if the bond passed, but if it does, for us to really go ahead and take a look at, do a deep dive for Bowditch, because it does need to be maybe not modernized, but renovated or rebuilt is the better term. And then I just wanted to confirm, you stated that in the facilities master plan, there's 15 million devoted specifically for gym at Bowditch. Is that correct? So if the bond does pass, a gym would be included in the at Bowditch.
Were you asking me a question? I'm sorry. I heard the question. Was it to me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, okay.
Yes.
All right. So the gym is included as one of the board's immediate priorities among all the other immediate priorities that, as you will recall, that come up to about $450 million. And those are immediate priorities that would be addressed should the bond pass. And the gym specifically is in there, as well as the modernization of Bowditch.
Great. So just to be clear, if the bond passes, a gym will be included there.
That is your commitment. You recall in passing the resolution that you passed very general language. I don't think anyone would recommend that you change what your commitments are, but certainly that is within any board's prerogative in terms of the legal part of the language itself. And I wish to point out, because you used $100 million by putting the two together, the 85 million, I think I was not clear before, that the cost estimate that we've gotten from two different, general cost estimates from two different architects is well in excess of $100 million to totally rebuild the school. Well in excess.
Thank you for that clarification.
Any other discussion points? I'll just say thank you for the presentation. I really enjoyed looking at the pictures of all the projects that are almost done. I drive by, my doorbell just rang. I drive by Beach Park Elementary School almost every day, so I'm always excited to see the progress there. And looking forward to talking more about the timeline of the phase 2 projects and what that's going to look like. I do agree that, you know, hopefully this bond passes and we can accelerate the HVAC. And if it doesn't, then I think that's certainly something we have to figure out, because the air conditioning and obviously the fires and the virus stuff, it's not going anywhere. So I'll just cross my fingers that we get the money.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for the update. And I meant to say it when we approved the consent agenda, but so exciting that Bayside has been completed, and just really exciting to see the progress on all of the projects. So just thank you to everyone for continuing just to, you know, to move all of these projects forward. Really important. And, you know, again, as Jenna mentioned, right, just under budget. So, you know, that was a huge concern for a while. And so it's really great that we're able to both move them along quickly and, you know, and not exceed our budget by a lot. I do think it would be helpful for us to include timelines moving forward. So I think that's a great point. So if we could just do that, that would be wonderful, just for us and for the public, for transparency. I think that's helpful in terms of communication. I was wondering, and now I'm just going to lose my train of thought here. Oh, I'm not sure in terms of what we are and are not able to discuss in terms of kind of the projects that are a part of the bond. We can talk about the projects, just not the bond. Is that correct? Okay. Because I do think with some of the projects, given that they are, you know, COVID sensitive, and many of them were things that were already going to likely be in the pipeline because a lot of them are safety related, but kind of COVID and concern around that, as well as just air quality issues and heat and all of these things, right? It accelerates the need for a lot of these. I think it would be helpful the next time that we have an update, if we are able to share a little bit about, you know, should the bond pass, what would that look like in terms of turnaround? Because a lot of those things, you know, it's not the same as Measure X in terms of new builds. There's parts of it that would potentially be, but when we're thinking about some of the safety components, I think that would be helpful just for folks to have an idea of what that would look like. I'd be interested in that as well. So I think, I mean, that kind of goes with the timeline point. And then just to clarify, so we're saying that we are talking about the North Central School on the 5th meeting, or we're saying we are not talking about it on the 5th?
Well, we said we would timeline our projects. So if we're doing that timelining, we would have a sense of what we're looking at, but at the same time, we also have to do the LCAP that night or that day and equity work. So I think what Noelia and what Trustee Corzo and Chin are both saying is that we may not have enough time, and we may need to really work on it on September 10th. So I thought we were starting it on the 5th and then carrying it over to the 10th to finalize the RFP to go out.
Okay. I'm fine either way.
Go ahead, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I'm fine with either of those. I just want to make sure that we have this on a timeline that's, you know, consistent with kind of where, you know, acknowledging the fact that we need to also be moving this project along. Mm-hmm. And that I just want to make sure that we are not deprioritizing it, or that it's something that we just don't get to. Right. So I think we just, however we're moving things around, you know, you guys will determine that. I just want to make sure that it stays on the front burner as something that we're discussing, because there's a lot that we have to do before we get to the phase that we're at with the other projects in terms of talking about next steps in building, and we're not close to that, and so we just need to move it forward.
Yeah.
President Corso, may I say something? Joel and I and Patrick are representing the rest of the facilities team, but we really want to pass on the credit that the board has given for being under budget and meeting, hopefully, fingers crossed, our revised timeline. Yes, it has changed a couple of times, but it has not changed in a year, I don't believe. And want to give credit particularly to the project managers, as well as the on-site general construction people, as well as the representatives of the architects who are on site. So our own project managers, Mark Sherrill, Kevin Sanders, and Bob Price.
Thank you, Tish. Yeah, I'll just kind of echo that. I think, you know, I think our district has had some difficulty in the past with moving projects along, and I am very grateful to our team for just getting these projects done very quickly. I feel like our gym, like, it flew by. There, you know, to know that one of them is all the way completed already is great. I'm excited about our other projects. I'll just kind of piggyback off Trustee Watkins. I am very interested in making sure that our North Central School project moves along. It's a really important one. They're all definitely important, but we're talking about a project that has the potential to decrease barriers for students that are currently, well, not currently because we're in distance learning, but you know, that for many, many years, you know, have had to wake up earlier, get to school late, just face additional barriers to getting to school than some of our other students. So I definitely think that that topic warrants a lot of time, and I don't feel like we will be able to address it meaningfully in you know, our 2-hour study session where we already have a lot of other topics that we want to get through. So I do think that it warrants being its own agenda item, and you know, having enough space for us to have a discussion, a thorough discussion during a regular board meeting. I'm just wondering if anyone else wants to, what thoughts are about that?
I do agree. It's going to need to be given the amount of time it deserves, and it's going to be more than what is allocated for our September 5th meeting. So I'm fine with making it its own item for the next board meeting or another session. It just needs its own, I think.
Thank you. Yeah, and just in terms of timelines, I would love to see timelines on these projects. I know that, you know, we do have them up on our website, but in terms of just communications, I'd love to see, you know, timelines be put up on our Facebook page and just in some of our communications to families. I'm also, Tish, you had mentioned the North Central School, and I think you tried to mention Handsome. Can you just clarify, because there's lots of different ones, so I want to make sure we're on the same page about that one.
Well, we're talking about outreach to everyone, but Hanson was the name that didn't come to mind. I forget what Hanson stands for. Home Association of North Central San Mateo, I think.
Home Association of North Central San Mateo.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of the timeline, I didn't mention that we're ready to go on the timeline. We just wanted to make sure that you all have seen locations and didn't have any questions, and that we had the final cost, the current cost estimates and the costs in hand. We learned some lessons from phase 1, and one of them was making sure that we start with budget and keep talking about budget and having it guide the project. So we're ready to go on the timeline. I'm sorry, President Corso, for taking that opportunity to talk about timeline.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. It's good to know that it's already in the works and that you were just kind of waiting for our you know, our discussion before kind of putting that out there to the public. And I appreciate the thoughtfulness and you thinking about the process and lessons learned from past projects and how they are communicated out. So in terms, I just kind of want to throw this out there. I will say it again, but I also just want folks that are listening to know there is the Congregational Church of San Mateo. They have a new church that, or not a new church, but a Spanish-speaking congregation as part of their congregation now as well. And so while the Home Association definitely a good touch point, I know that group, the church in Spanish, I think it's called Latidos Unidos en Cristo. I'm happy to connect you, Tish, if we need to do that. But they definitely have supported a lot of families, a lot of our families. And so they definitely need to be included in any community engagement process. So just throwing that out there. Sorry about my dog, folks. Let's see. Yeah, and I will just say, and in terms of the North Central School, I know that we're going to, as the slide reads now, it's, you know, it's thinking about program options. Again, I just want to say this publicly. I want to make sure that we, and that our consultant, or, you know, when we put the RFP, that we are really leaving that open for people, because when you're thinking about a program in the sense of what people think, what am I saying? When we're thinking about a program and you are already having in mind kind of the limitations of basically, let me just say it bluntly, I want to make sure that we are thinking about the different facility options that we're going to have for this school, and not limit the community in terms of the space that they may or may not have. So I want to make sure that, you know, the community has every single possibility, and that they're not limited by a small school on the corner lot of, you know, of the property we're talking about. And I'm really hoping that, you know, we can think about how to be efficient in terms of continuing to be under budget. And I think we do have some opportunities to discuss. So while the program is 100%, you know, a priority, I also want us to think about, you know, just other aspects of how we can be, you know, efficient with our budget when thinking about the North Central School. Let me see, what else? Yeah, I'm excited about, you know, Bowditch, George Hall, and Sunny Bray. I'd actually love to, you know, when we get an idea of when these scheduled neighborhood meetings are, I'd love to know, so that maybe I can sit in on one. And yeah, thank you to our architect. And, you know, I just think, you know, as some people have mentioned, you know, we haven't completely finished all of our projects, and here we are thinking about what's next. And I think that's, you know, that's what we want to do, because we have a lot of needs in our community and in our schools, and our kids deserve that. So, you know, there are ebbs and flows, but I am grateful that we're making as much progress as we are, and really I'm proud of our team and our district, and of our new projects and how we're able to give that to our students. Okay, that's it for my comments. Are there any other comments? I'm sorry, not comments, discussion points from the board?
I don't have any, because everybody has already said it. So thank you, everybody who is working on those projects. The facility is beautiful. And then just being mindful of timelines and the HVAC and ACs and filters, the timeline and cost on those, because that's obviously a necessity. And then, yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Fish, and let's.
Can I just say one other thank you?
Go
I
ahead.
just want to thank the contractors and the trades, because they did. They were very gracious and brought some of our students onto the sites so they can learn what it was like to actually go ahead and build either the gyms in the classrooms. And so I think it was a great learning opportunity. And I hope that in the future, if we still keep constructing projects, that they continue to partner with us and teach our kids about the trades. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Chin. Okay, let me get back to my agenda here, folks. Bear with me. Okay, thank you. So that was for information. We don't need a vote. Let's move on to item 7.2, variable term.
Good evening, members of the board, community, and staff. I'm bringing forth to you a request for a variable term waiver for a teacher at College Park, Ms. Xu Shen. She's a Mandarin immersion teacher. She meets the minimum requirements as she does hold a multiple subject credential, and she just needs additional time to complete her bilingual authorization for Mandarin. And so this variable term waiver will allow her to do that while she can continue teaching in the classroom. So all requests for a variable term waiver must be presented to the board for approval. So I respectfully request that you approve this waiver for Ms. Shen, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank
I
you.
don't have
So
any. You go.
Go ahead. It's fine.
I was just going to say, I don't have any questions. I'm ready to make a motion.
Does anyone else have any questions? Okay.
So then I make a motion to approve item, oh, it's gone now. Awesome. I make a motion to approve the variable waiver.
Do I have a
we have
second?
public? Do we want to check on public comment?
Okay, so
Yeah,
all those who are still with us at the board meeting, if you would like to make public comment on this particular item, please use the raise your hand functionality within Zoom now. Okay, President Corzo, we have no hands raised at this time.
Thank you. Okay, so we do have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Roll call vote, Trustee Chin?
Yes.
Trustee Hitchcock?
Yes.
Trustee Proctor?
Yes.
Trustee Watkins?
Yes.
And a yes from me. Thank you. The motion carries. Moving on to informed K through 12 contract for 2020-2021.
So during crisis, we always look for a silver lining. So the district has been working with Informed K-12 in a limited capacity to digitize forms and implement electronic workflows. Now, especially that we are working remotely, we found this to be a critical need. So thus far, we've created electronic workflows for personal requisition forms. We've put all of our onboarding paperwork, including HR forms and benefits forms, online. And we were able to have over 100 new hires use that process and receive very positive feedback. What we'd like to do is to go ahead and enter into a more extensive agreement that we can use in an unlimited capacity to continue creating new processes and new workflows, and really trying to avoid printing materials and mailing, which is can be an additional cost. And we also want to be responsive and be more environmentally friendly and be green. So this new agreement will allow us to, like I said, create unlimited processes. Hopefully we can get not only the HR department and the business department, but other departments throughout the district involved for us to be able to be more efficient, be able to respond more quickly, and really save on costs as well as, going green. So I do want to thank and extend my gratitude to the HR and payroll staff who, in the midst of this COVID-19, they found the extra time to really get this project off the ground. So I respectfully request your approval of this contract with Informed K-12, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any clarifying questions? Okay, let's move on to public comment.
Okay. Anybody with public comment on this particular item of K-12 contract, informed K-12 contract, please raise your hand now. Okay, President Corzo, we have no hands raised at this time.
Okay, opening it up for discussion or a motion.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, roll call vote. Trustee Chin,
Yes.
Trustee Hitchcock,
Yes.
Trustee Proctor,
Yes.
Trustee Watkins,
Yes.
and a yes for me. The motion carries.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Sue. Moving on to board member statements and requests for future agenda items. And I will actually take this opportunity to just say how excited I am that the school year has begun. You know, I think for my son, the experience has been a lot smoother this time around. For us at Fiesta, you know, he had his morning meetings. He was in class online for the morning, and then was able to go pick up some supplies that the parent community had raised money for every student at Fiesta. They got a little whiteboard, some other little supplies, and he also got to see his teacher and just kind of wave at him, you know, social distance style, drive by, here's the supplies. But he did get to see him in person, and I thought, you know, that was really thoughtful, and it was a nice touch. I also want to recognize that, you know, there are still some you know, some students who maybe did not have that same experience. It is the first week of school. I know that I personally had a couple friends reach out to me, and not for themselves, but for, you know, a friend of theirs that, you know, maybe hadn't received all of the communications, wasn't completely prepared. And I just want to name that. There's definitely, you know, the first week of school is rough for everybody, getting used to a new routine, catching up on things that maybe you had missed, and then giving time for students to do so as well, right? So I do want to just commend everybody's efforts, and especially our students. They are so resilient, and you know, I think they'll definitely continue to have, you know, they'll continue to make progress and get used to their new routines, and then you know, I think the new way in which they're doing school, and yeah, I feel for them, because I you know, during my son's class, I definitely you know, heard, and my son telling me directly, just, you know, we wish we were in school again like normal, and that's just that's not what we're able to do right now, unfortunately. So yeah, thank you to our entire community for all of the love and the learning and the growth. And I will leave it at that. Thanks, everyone.
I want to say the same. You know, tomorrow's Friday, so we've almost made it to the end of the week, and I just really wanted to thank all of the teachers and staff and principals and district office employees for really making this week different and better than the spring. And I know it was kind of a rough road, and we've had really late night meetings and getting a lot of feedback from families and such. And it just was really evident to me, at least for my kids and from families that I've talked to, that the amount of effort that everybody put into making this, you know, a success for this fall, I guess, friend. So I know it's not perfect for everyone, but in our household, things are going smoothly, which that makes my life easier. But I just really wanted to appreciate and thank everybody for everything that they're doing. And I wish everyone good luck for this fall, and thank you again.
And I'm going to put Trustee Corzo and Trustee Proctor's words into an emotion, which is woo! So yay to the first week almost down, and to everybody, staff, teachers, families, and children for making it a success. And I'm just really excited for our new adventure. Thank you.
Echoing what other folks have shared, welcome back to school, everybody. It's, you know, it's a different back to school. And I think, you know, when I just think about all of our community members that have been involved, from our kids that, as you know, Noelia mentioned, resilient. This isn't the way that they want to go back to school, but you know, they're figuring out this new normal. And to all of the families that are having to make, you know, so many adjustments around this pandemic, and our teachers and staff that have been working all summer and preparing and really providing engaging and rigorous experience for our kids. You know, all of our district staff that's been working tirelessly and around the clock and not had a break at all to ensure that we're able to go back with as smooth a start as possible. And all of our just, you know, our community members and all of the organizations that we're partnering with. And, you know, just I think about just how many individuals it takes to make this happen, and just how grateful, you know, I are thinking about our Ed Foundation and their campaign and fundraiser, and all of the, you know, businesses that have gotten involved, and all the childcare support. Just the list goes on, and I'm sure that I'm forgetting somebody. It's just there are so many people that have been involved in kind of starting this off. So hope everyone had a good first week, and I know lots of kids were excited to at least be back in this new version of school and seeing their friends, etc. And just looking forward to how we continue to learn and grow through this process. I know we'll be checking in over the course of the fall and reevaluating. And, you know, also just want to say that I hope everyone's just staying safe and healthy. It's one thing after another right now. And, you know, there are a lot of people in our community that are impacted in so many ways, and the hits kind of just keep coming. And so I just think it's, you know, as frustrated as sometimes I feel in an individual moment, just trying to keep in perspective how many people are really, really struggling right now. And so, again, just, you know, time to hold all of our babies close and to just support one another, and, you know, take it one day at a time. It's a lot, and it can be overwhelming. You know, of course, just thinking about all of our first responders right now and all of the folks that are impacted by fires, and, you know, right here in our county, right, in addition to all across our state. So it's scary, and just, you know, again, grateful for our community that's really pulling together and has continued to pull together through all of these tragedies and really difficult times. So yeah, looking forward to seeing how we continue to move forward through all of this. I did want to share that I was able to participate in a panel on Tuesday with the San Mateo Police Department and some of our youth, just around youth and policing. There is a link up on their Facebook page and on YouTube. So if you weren't able to attend, good to check it out. I know that as a district, we'll be engaging in a lot of community outreach and stakeholder sessions. And I know that our police department is looking to engage with us in those conversations. And so I'm really looking forward to doing that, and to really thinking about how we continue to improve our ability to outreach to our kids and our families who voices we don't always hear. And I think that that's one thing, you know, I thought a lot about kind of after that session or during that session. It takes a lot of guts for any kid to get on a panel with adults in front of, you know, potentially hundreds of people with police. And it's even harder if you've had any sort of, you know, negative experience, right? Or you're afraid, or, you know, those are really challenging. And so it was really incredible to see 4 youth that, you know, kind of took that plunge and put themselves out there. And I think, you know, it'll be incumbent upon us to think about how we continue to move forward and support and reach out to our kids and families as we think about how we move forward with our work. So So check that out. And there's one other thing that now I'm forgetting that I was going to share, but I'll stop for now. And if I remember, come back. Thanks,
I was going to say
everyone.
it was probably save the date for October 23rd for our gala.
I did say that already, but it doesn't hurt to say it twice.
Yes, save the date, gala. Just echoing what everyone else said, but specifically, I guess, starting off with what Trustee Watkins was mentioning about the hardships that everyone is having right now. You know, one, obviously, we started off in distance learning, and we had, obviously, it was very hot. So, you know, if the kids were in class, they would have been taught in very hot classrooms, so we're thankful for that. But then we're already started fire season because of the freak storms that we had this past weekend. I know I have a friend who works in our community, and she had a house in Pescadero and lost it last night. So her whole house burnt down, and it's rough. It's rough because besides the fact that, you know, we've got COVID going on and some insecurity about people's jobs, you know, there's obviously other issues that we have, natural disasters that we're facing too. So it's rough. And so I want to, you know, throw out and just make sure we're all thinking of everyone who's going through some hard times now. I also wanted to thank everybody for all the hard work they put in over the summer. I mean, I know a lot of staff and community members, well, staff specifically, you know, didn't take vacations. We're working lots of weekends. A lot of friends and families that I've talked to regarding the opening of school this week expressed that it really showed how much work the teachers and staff and everyone put in over the last few weeks to be prepared for this week. So whether it was the fact that the professional development days worked or whether everyone got online early, it was really helpful. And I think that in my mind, there was sort of this like big exhale from the community, from the people that I talked to who were all anxious about what the first day of school and the first few days were going to be like, but understanding the 4-hour blocks and, you know, how everything works online. There, of course, have been technical issues, which we realize that there are, and there are some other issues that we're trying to work out. But overall, I think from what I hear, things are pretty positive. So I want to thank everybody for getting us to this point. We had a long road over, in some ways, late spring and the whole summer. But I think it really shows, you know, with all the preparation that all the teachers and everybody for the first couple of days. Specifically, I also wanted to point out, I brought a couple of props. There were all the things that we talked about over the weeks of summertime. There's a distance learning family handbook, which I didn't know we were doing. And we know a lot of things, but I didn't realize that it was going to be put out there. And I know that a lot of the distribution days of materials have been put off because of the air and everything else. But from my understanding, the district did put down and gave every school this handbook, and it has like the COVID, it has the pillars, it has, you know, the talk about airflow, it talks about when if you're sick, all the different things that we talked about, actually put it in writing, and I thought it was great. In addition, there was a technology handout that, you know, for help, resource handout, which is really good. And even like, and it's both in English and Spanish, and it's fantastic. And so I want to thank the district for putting this out there because, you know, it's one thing having the materials online, but it's another thing for things to start showing up in your packets. And it's like, wait, that's everything we talked about. And it's fantastic that it's in writing so people can actually refer back to it. Also, the whole thing about digital citizenship, I know that at least our school, the first couple of weeks, they're going through it. And, you know, my kids don't want me to be in the room listening, and I'm sure the teachers don't want either. But as I was walking by, I could hear them talking about clickbait and what it means to like be, you know, a good digital citizen. And I thought that was fantastic, especially with everything that's going on and what we have to learn. So again, I just want to thank everybody, teachers, parents, the whole community. I still think we have a long road ahead, but we went through a lot this past summer, and I really want to thank everybody for all your work on that. Lastly, I just want to congratulate Noelia, Shara, and Lisa Warren, because I think, you know, come, and especially Lisa, so come November, we'll have a new board member. and thank Rebecca. I'll thank you later for being on, but thank you for serving. So, but yeah, that's it.
So I do have to speak up and just say that the handbook for the parents was the brainchild of several of our principals, and they took all the detail and pushed it together, and then everybody put it in Google Docs to finish it up, but they thought that it might be helpful. So I want to thank our principals for thinking of that. So that was their piece of the puzzle, of the many, many pieces that we worked on this summer.
Okay, thank you, everyone. I think that's it for board member statements. I just want to say I'm really proud of our board, all of our statements. I think some of us missed certain things, and others of us, brought certain things up, especially like the fires and the communities that are being impacted. Shout out to Puente. They are collecting funds for our farm worker community in our county and Pescadero area. So please donate to them if you're able. It's definitely, they're our neighbors and they need our help right now. So I'll be doing so, inviting everyone to do so as well. And with that, future meeting dates.
You have a set of meetings coming up. Your next board meeting being the study session on September 5th. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. And moving on to adjournment.
This feels wrong. It's not even 9 p.m. yet. But I guess I'll take it and motion to adjourn.
Second. Roll call vote. Trustee Chin.
It does feel weird, like we should talk more, but I will say absolutely yes.
Trustee Hitchcock.
Yes.
Trustee Proctor.
Yes.
Trustee Watkins.
Yes.
And a yes from me. We are adjourned at 8:55 p.m. Thank you everyone for joining us.
Good night. Thank you.
Bye everybody.